Okay, everybody, today we have a delicious dish in the crock pot, and since it is St. Patrick's Day weekend, we are going to cook this corned beef brisket, and I'm going to show you how in case you never did it before. Okay, and this comes with brine seasoning in the package if you buy one like this, and you want to put the juice in here with the meat. Don't drain it, don't wash it, okay? So I'm going to use my knife here and cut the top of this bag. And if you notice, I'm cutting the big part of the end of the roast so it comes out easily, okay? If you cut the wrong end, it's not going to come out so easy. All right, so put that in there and drip your juices in. So next we're just going to arrange this. Now you see there's some fat on the top on one side and not so much on the bottom. I like to put the fat on the top. That way whatever fat's on there will cook in the juice that's going to be in here, and it'll melt down and go in the veggies. Otherwise, if it's not exposed and it's against all those carrots, it might not cook quite as well. Okay, so that's the first trick about this. So next thing we're going to add is some broth. This is just vegetable broth. I'm going to put all along here pretty much to cover up the carrots. Okay, this is going to more or less be a steam cook in here. Some people like to put the meat on the bottom, but I like to do it this way. It comes out much more tender, I think. Okay, now I've already got the crock pot on the high setting, and I'm going to put a little bit of my steak seasoning on here. You don't have to do this, but I always like to do it since I'm really adding a lot of vegetables and extra stuff in here to help season it all up, all right? And next, I'm going to add a bunch of chopped up celery, and I put most of it on the sides and all around the perimeter of it, okay? I mean, it's okay if it's on top, but it's better if you could steam it and not really smother that meat in there, okay? And the next thing we're going to do is some onions, and I'm going to just kind of sprinkle them around there, okay? And again, try to get a lot of them on the sides, okay? So that's pretty much it for now. We're going to put the lid on here and cook this for 6 hours with the crock pot turned on high. So I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on here and we'll let it warm up. It probably takes a good hour just to warm it up. And then after that, you're really going through the cooking process. So after this thing cooks for 4 hours, we're going to add some more ingredients that's going to just put this thing over the top. It's going to be delicious. Okay, it's been 3 hours, and as you can see, our onions and our celery have reduced down, and see how high the juice is up into the meat there. And you know, the longer it cooks, the more juice is going to accumulate. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lift this meat out here, just temporarily here, because I want to stir all these veggies up together. Okay. And now I am going to submerge this meat in here. Okay, so we're going to scoop all this to the side, best you can. Put the meat in there like that. And just move some of this out over here so you can scooch the meat over. That's good. Okay. We're still going to add some more ingredients in here, but I really want this to reduce down to smaller volume. So we're going to go another hour, and that'll be 4 hours. And then we're going to add our final ingredients and let it go for 2 more hours, okay? You really need to slow cook this brisket, and it'll be tender and fall right apart with a fork. Okay, we are in hour 5 on our brisket corned beef. Here, the final touches, okay? First, we're going to put in some potatoes. I cut some potatoes in uniform size. Try to get them all the same size if you can. The smaller potatoes, I just cut them in half. The bigger potatoes, I cut in 3 pieces. Put those all around. And you see the liquid is actually boiling now, okay? So that's what I was waiting for all along. You have to have this liquid boiling. Okay, And you see all the veggies have sunken down in there, okay? Now the next thing we're going to do is I took a half a head of cabbage and I cut the core out of it and I kind of chopped it into sections there, and we're going to throw that in there. That's a half a head of cabbage. If I had a little more room, I'd put a whole head of cabbage in there, but that's going to be okay. All right, so now we're just going to let that cook for 1 more hour with the lid on there. That might be good enough. We'll see in an hour. All right, here we are 6 hours into this corned beef, okay? And see, all of our cabbage is cooked now. Okay, what I'm going to do here, it's handy to have a meat thermometer. If you have one, it would be great. We're going to poke it in here. It's about 180, no, 190, 190, 194, 95. Okay. Now, if you're experienced with smoking and barbecuing, you got to know that this brisket's going to be tender and fall apart at anything over 200 usually. And you could give it this poke test like that, really, if you don't have a thermometer. If it's easy to poke through, it's done. But you know what I'm going to do here is I'm going to lift it up out of the stuff and I'm going to set it on top here. Okay. I'm going to leave this thing on just about 30 more minutes and I'm going to shut it off and let it rest. Okay. When you let it rest, it sucks in the juice back into the meat. Okay. We've been 6.5 hours on this brisket. And I just shut it off. It's still bubbling a little bit here, but I shut it off. I let it rest a little while. Now I'm going to show you how to slice it, okay? These could be kind of tricky if you don't know what you're doing here, okay? Now if you see, first of all, when you examine the brisket before you cook it, you need to know which way the grain goes, okay? So for instance, if you're going to break it apart just with a fork, you could see the grain, how it's coming apart is in a straight line that way, okay? So therefore you want to slice it against the grain. That's what the term against the grain means. So if you slice it like this against the grain, you'll get some nice steaks that actually are easy to chew and fall apart. See how it's like in very particle grains? If you cut it like that with the grain, it'll be stringy meat and very hard to chew. So just pay attention to that. Cut against the grain. Look at the meat before you cut it. I could tell here, that's about where the brisket goes in 2 different grains. And this grain goes like that. So I'm going to cut it like that. Okay? This one, we're going to cut like this all the way across there. So that's how you slice your brisket. Okay, it makes a big difference, and when you're eating it, you will definitely notice. Okay, just put a little bit of the meat in here, and as you can see, the rest of this stuff is done. We have carrots, onions, potatoes, celery, and cabbage all together, and I seasoned it with a salt, pepper, onion, garlic seasoning. Okay, so what you're going to do here is just take some of this stuff, throw it in your bowl, maybe 1 piece of potato. Get my fork, and you'll see this potato should break right up for how long I cooked it. Yeah, very nice. All right. And of course, we probably need to put a little more broth in there. And I tasted the broth. It has a lot of flavor, not too salty. Came out really good. Okay. You got to make sure your potatoes and your carrots are done too. Mm-hmm. Great. It's very hot. I'm not going to bite that on that yet. Okay, well, anyway, that's how you make your corned beef and cabbage for your St. Patrick's Day dinner. Good stuff, you guys. Get it while it's on sale. You still have a few more days. They're only $2 a pound at our market, surprisingly. That's really cheap for beef. Okay, so take advantage of it. It's only once a year when they do that. I bought a couple extra and threw them in the freezer too. All right, thank you, everybody. Enjoy.